My name's Isaiah Tallmeyer, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker for this evening. So Dr. Earyn McGee received her BS in biology from Howard University and an MS and PhD in natural resources from the University of Arizona. Dr. McGee is passionate about field research, herpetology, and social justice. This is reflected in her research, which focuses on how drought affects lizards in arid environments, and also how to increase the representation of African-American women in natural resources careers. She is an NSF Bridge to Doctorate Fellow and an NSF GRFP Fellow. She served her community as a Doris Duke Conservation Scholar. I've worked with some of those too. Awesome to hear that. And she's a co-chair of her department's Inclusive Excellence Committee and is a science communicator. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at AfroHerper, where she runs a popular social media game called #FindThatLizard. Play it if you haven't, it's super fun. Every week, she sends out a photo of a lizard camouflage in its natural environment to her over 47,000 followers on Twitter and almost 20,000 followers on Instagram. Players then have 4 hours to #FindThatLizard before the location is revealed. Earyn uses this game as an opportunity to teach people about lizards and to help them build a greater appreciation for these cool animals. Dr. McGee was also one of the co-organizers for the 2020 social media phenomenon, Black Birders Week. She's also been recognized for her efforts as a Forbes 30 Under 30 listed in 2020. And in the fall of 2019, Dr. McGee was named AAAS If Then STEM Ambassador. As part of this program, she's been able to share her work with a national audience, including Inside Marie Claire magazine, on Goldilocks' Fast Forward Girls, and soon an episode of CBS's Mission Unstoppable. Dr. McGee and the other 124 ambassadors have been honored with this life-size statue as part of their #IfThenSheCan, the exhibit program. She spent the summer of 2020 working for the Las Vegas Review Journal as an AAAS Mass Media Fellow, and her greatest accomplishment in this program was having her work featured on the front page of the newspaper. One day, Dr. McGee hopes to host a natural history TV show. We're getting a little practice here today, right? And to teach people about the animals and showcase Black, Indigenous, and other people of color doing important conservation work. When I just got to meet Earyn earlier today, she shared with me that she is newly hired as the coordinator of conservation engagement at the LA Zoo, which is awesome. So let's give her a round of applause for that. And she mentioned that she got some super cool swag with her, some stuff that she'll have for offer after this. So definitely stick around and chat with her and see what she has. And also she'll be leading some restoration in that new capacity. So lots of opportunities for collaboration. So please join me in giving a super warm welcome to Dr. Earyn McGee. Takes a village.
Sorry. Really sorry. There's this joke, how many ecologists does it take to run technology? I think it's not yet when I hit the bar, I don't know how to bring the bar back up. Maybe I'm Julie's.
Maybe minimize the whole PowerPoint.
Oh, good job. You see the button. I think it's because the share screen is not the screen.
It's the actual PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay. We got this, folks.
Nope.
Oh, well, you're
Mine
blocking
is
the,
minimize this.
yeah, what do I do?
Minimize this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mini process. Hold on. I wish someone.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. I don't know about y'all, but I felt very inspired by that last talk. I felt like I was in church, and now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm supposed to go after that. I got 25 minutes and 33 slides. I'm not timed right. Yeah, but we'll get into it, and I'm really excited to be here. Julie asked me to come and kind of like talk to you guys about how I became Afro Herper, some DE&I stuff, a lot of my science communication, and where I think that, you know, we should be as like a field in general when it comes to being out in the environment. And let's see. Okay, we're not trying to. There we go. And I could talk about that forever because a lot of those things are, you know, pretty much like I'm 28 and that's like my whole entire life. It's what I've been doing the whole time. So as you can see, since I was a kid, I knew I wanted to work with animals. Like I was born in Georgia, lived in Atlanta, and so I did I did Zoo Atlanta as a kid, and I remember that I was just so excited. I don't even remember the program. I just remember being so excited. I didn't sleep the night before, and I would just stayed up all night watching Animal Planet, and I was like, I get to go to the animals. And I was like, I was so hyped and I was ready. And my parents were essentially like, you know, this kid is a weirdo, but we're gonna let her do what she wants to do. Just when you turn 18, move out of our house. I did. Don't come back. I did go back, and they're like, they didn't really know what I could do. They were just like, I didn't hear the word ecology until I got to, you know, college essentially. And they were like, you could either be a vet or you could be a zookeeper, and you can't work at the zoo. Because they don't make enough money, but here I am at the zoo. So you're gonna be a vet. And I was like, being a vet is not gonna work for me because it just doesn't feel right. So when I got to college, I went to Howard, which is a historically Black university. I got introduced to this man here on my left, Dr. George Middendorf, and he is a herpetologist. He's still alive, but he's retired, so was. And so he was working out in the Chiricahua Mountains, and he had been doing that for about, 40 plus years. So he has all this, awesome data, and he had been taking students out for a while. And so that was like my first opportunity. I got into this environmental biology scholars program, and I was just like, I can't believe people pay you to do this shit. You're literally out here walking the same 100 meters every day for a month to a month and a half at the time, picking up some dang on lizards, and you still getting paid, and y'all paying me? Say less, I'm doing this. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to keep doing that. And so I went to grad school. And while I was in grad school, I created #FindThatLizard, which is what I'm mostly known for. And it was like, it was just my way of getting people involved with field research without having to actually bring them into the field with me, because I just know that that's not feasible to do. I can't bring literally everybody with me. And so I was like, what can I do to make this happen? And so I just started posting on social media. And it's been really cool to see how like it's like all played out, where over here on the top left, this is probably one of my favorite things. I went to a AAAS conference, and this mom walked up and she was like, my kid drew this for you. And so back in the day when I had a lot of time, I would make GIFs of the Find That Lizard reveals. I don't do that anymore. I don't have time. And so the kid drew out every frame of the GIF, and for a very long time, it was like up on my refrigerator. And I was like, this is so cute. Like, I can't believe like people like this much. And it's just had like a major impact on people, where they were like this person down here was like, wow, I found it in record time. I really love this because I never appreciated reptiles until recently. And then one day I'll be good enough for Guess That Lizard, and people use it in their classrooms and their zoos and their libraries and stuff like that. And so like I'm just like, wow, you guys are really picking up on this. And that wasn't the intention. I just wanted to do something cool for people. And so it wouldn't be an Earyn McGee presentation if I didn't include a find that lizard. So somewhere in this photo is a lizard. So I'm gonna give you guys about 30 seconds because I don't have a lot of time. And so I tried to help you out a little bit by giving you a couple of potential options. So you have about like 15 seconds at this point to figure out where the lizard is in this photo. All right, we're gonna go for it now. And hopefully you guessed correctly. So that's pretty much the game. Yeah, I just go out and take pictures. Today I actually, I also take submissions. And so for today, normally I post on Wednesdays, but I posted today this week. And the person that's in the picture was from Australia. And so she had like I don't know who they are, but they had like a really great story behind the picture where like this nature reserve in somewhere in Australia has been fighting for 10 years to protect the area from coal mining and then to protect bearded dragons as a result from that. And so I was like, oh yeah, let's post about that today. And so like I said, when Julie asked me to come and speak and talk about how I became Afro Herper, it's just kind of like, well, the PhD was pretty much how I did, well, pre that, and then the PhD was pretty much how I did that because my PhD is really it encapsulates who I am as a person, which is what my social media also does. So I got on Twitter when I started grad school in 2016 because my grad advisor, Dr. Michael Bogan, was also on Twitter. And so like we would go to conferences and people would be like, oh my gosh, you know, Michael, we love Michael. Can you introduce us to Michael? You're so lucky that he's your advisor. And I was like, you know what? I'm just starting this. I'm getting paid right now, but in 5 years when I graduate, I'm gonna need a job. And so I want people to kind of, you know, feel that way about me. So I started doing social media and I can really like, that's how I built the following is a whole nother hour-long conversation. Essentially is just, you know, consistency and figuring out how to, like, I just started posting stuff. Like I would go to a conference and I would be like, okay, so we're at conferences now. Here's how you make a poster and things like that, or stuff from like a couple of years ago. Then I would post that stuff and, you know, I would post like 3 times a day, every day for, you know, months at a time to just like stay up there on the algorithm. Like I said, I could talk about that forever. But essentially, I knew that I didn't want to be a professor and I needed to figure out some kind of way of getting the resources that I needed to find the job that I wanted to do, because in my university, I was lucky enough to have an advisor that was super supportive and a department that was also super supportive and my own funding. So they were like, you can do whatever you want within, you know, the confines of the requirements for graduation, but we don't have the resources to help you. So you have to go out and do all that yourself. And so a lot of the opportunities that I've had, I found those things on social media. And so essentially I kind of created a pathway for myself. And so how did I become Afro Herper? Well, that whole thing is essentially me. And it's like, I like, you know, nature. And then I also am passionate about social justice because I'm a Black woman. And I just put all that stuff together. The only parts of my life that you don't get on social media is like the ratchet side. You do not need to see me twerking at the club, okay? You don't have to see everything, but you are still getting the real me. And I think that really like, people feel the authenticity. It's not like I'm putting on in order to like gain followers or anything like that. Like I'm just genuinely being myself. And that is what I'm giving you within reason. Not everybody needs to know the same thing. Like you're not gonna tell your mama everything you out here doing. So why am I gonna tell y'all everything I'm out here doing? And so for my dissertation, I had 3 chapters. I was looking at how lizards are affected by stream drying. I did a review on the barriers preventing Black women from entering and remaining in natural resources careers. And I created a program to introduce middle school age Black girls to careers in natural resources. And the fourth part here, because of time, I don't think that we're going to get to that today, but Isaiah kind of like mentioned the most of that stuff in my introduction. And so if you guys want to talk about that, we can talk about that later. But this is what I mean by an unconventional PhD, because I am, you know, an ecologist and a herpetologist, and yet 2 of my chapters are social sciences. And so like, not a whole lot of people really did that in my department. So it was like, they were like, okay, if that's what you want to do. And I was like, it is, because y'all want me to sit here and do all this DE&I stuff as a Black woman, and I'm not going to do it for free. So it's going to get paid for somehow. And being in my dissertation was the way that happened. So first we're kind of going to like talk about the lizard stuff. And we're not going to go into like the whole chapter and whatnot, because we don't have time for that. But I think it's kind of important to give you guys like the whole entire story. So for the lizard stuff, I was looking at lizards in the southwestern United States and how they might be impacted by climate change due to drought and stream drying, with the idea that as streams dry, we lose emerging aquatic insects. And so these aquatic insects, when they leave the aquatic systems and enter terrestrial ones, they become important food sources for animals like spiders, bats, birds, and then of course lizards. And so what I did was I went out into the southeastern Arizona and the Chiricahua Mountains. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's on the border of Mexico, New Mexico, and Arizona. And I was looking at these 3 lizard species: Scalopus yervi, Yarrow spiny lizard, Scalopus spurgatus, the striped toe lizard, and Urosaurus ornatus, the ornate tree lizard. And so I would go out doing all the stuff I did in undergrad, you know, catching lizards and whatnot, the stuff that I couldn't believe that people got paid to do, and then I was getting paid to do it again. And so that was the best. But the way that we were catching lizards, the historical term for it is noosing. And so me, as a Black woman, out in the middle of nowhere with a lot of non-Black people with no Wi-Fi or nothing like that, I'm just kind of like, this makes me feel uncomfortable. And for a very long time, I didn't have the language to explain why it made me uncomfortable. And so by the time that I got to college and I was doing my, got to grad school and I was doing my own projects and whatnot, I was starting to build that language, because I was going to more and more conferences, going to more symposiums. I was learning the stuff on my own that we weren't necessarily being taught in school. And so like, as I was building that language and as I was building my own platform, I was able to be like, hey, why don't we consider changing this term? Because 1, it's not the most exclusive. And 2, if I'm doing outreach with anybody, they don't even have to be Black, like they're kind of like, so you're hurting the lizards, you're killing the lizards. And I'm like, no, this doesn't hurt the lizards. Like I catch them, I take, you know, all my body measurements, and then I let them go. So 1, it's exclusionary. And 2, it's inaccurate to what we actually do. And so I was like, how about we change this? And so I proposed like we change it from noosing to lassoing. And I didn't care what we called it. I just thought that it would be a good idea to make that change. And so in addition to getting to those 2 things, being inclusionary and being accurate to what we do, it also did a 3rd thing, which is something that is really important in DE&I that I don't see done enough. And that's identifying bad actors. So how does it do that? Well, when you give those 2 very good, very solid reasons, and people are like, oh, well, we should just keep it to noosing. And then you're like, well, why? And they're like, oh, well, because that's how we've always done things. Well, then ding, ding, ding. That's the person when you're trying to be like, oh, well, maybe we should change our hiring practices to be more inclusive. And that's going to be the person that gives you, you know, that pushback. When you have these bad actors, and a lot of the times they hide behind implicit bias, those people are going to prevent you from moving forward and into actually getting the work done. Those people are going to like keep, like they're not afraid of change because people are afraid of change. They just don't want the change. And so if you don't know who those people are, if you can't identify them, then you can't go to the next step, which people don't like to do, which is like removing them, because they're never going to allow you to make those diversity friendly changes that you want to get to. So you gotta do it in the order of the steps. It's kind of like baking. Like if you don't mix stuff together right, then you're not going to get that cake or whatever it is that you're trying to make. You have to go in these orders. You can't be like, oh yeah, we want to bring in more diverse people. Well, how are you going to get those people to stay if there's people actually trying to like kick them out, like actively, like they don't want them to be there. They're going to make them uncomfortable. They're going to do stuff that's going to make those people leave. So you got to go from step one. And that's the easy way to do it. Like just being like, yeah, let's make this little change. And so that was one of the things. So like I said, my time going through this whole dissertation process is, you know, how I became Afro Herper. Like I'm learning through, you know, each iteration of all the things that I'm doing here. And so, as mentioned, I was a graduate student mentor for the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program. And that program essentially gave undergraduate students an opportunity to do field research with a grad student their first year, and then we would help them analyze their project data, and then they would come up with a poster and present at ESA the next year. And then also that next summer, they got the opportunity to go and do a project with any agency within the US that was doing conservation, like whatever they wanted to do, like somebody worked with wolves, somebody worked with sea otters, like literally they would be able to like do that stuff. And so me being me, I was going above and beyond for this program because I'm really into like mentorship. And so I would just stop students and be like, hey, we're recruiting, it's paid, come work with us. And they would be like, no. And I'm like, what you mean, no? It's paid, it's money. What else you doing this summer? And so then I started talking to, you know, the professors who are running the program. I'm just like, why are we not recruiting students and, you know, big numbers? What is the problem here? And they're like, well, we don't know. And so I'm like, don't you think that's something we should know? We should take the time to find that out. And they were like, you could do that. And I was like, bet. Dissertation. And so from that, I did this next chapter, which is a systematic review of barriers preventing Black women from entering and remaining in natural resources careers. And so for me, the justification was, if we're talking about, you know, DE&I and whatnot, and, you know, we want to keep doing good conservation work, well, we can't just have it be the same people doing the same things because we're just going to get the same projects and the same results. We need to include new and diverse voices. And really, are these voices new, or are we just not listening to them? So we need to be bringing in more people. So the questions for this chapter were, what barriers do Black women face? What is being done to break down these barriers, and what more should be done? And again, I'm not giving you guys the full rundown. I'm giving you just, you know, a broad overview because time. And so for Black women, and I focus specifically on Black women because I am a Black woman and those are my experiences, social justice and science are often intertwined, hence me here talking to you about science and social justice. And we're driven by a desire to serve our communities, hence me doing all the mentorship and all that other stuff that I do in my current job where I'm doing science and community engagement. So the framework that we looked at this through was epistemic injustice, which essentially says that we don't see certain people as knowledge holders or contributors to knowledge based on their identities. And for Black women specifically, we suffer from misogynoir, which is the unique discrimination between because of, you know, race and sex. And so in this, we found that there are, you know, 3 main barriers: structural barriers such as racism and white supremacy, cultural barriers such as Black people don't go outside, and then class barriers, which just means like people who don't have the money to either make it to a national park or get the equipment that is required for doing some kind of outdoor recreation and things like that. And these barriers often overlap with each other. And so how do we fix this? Black women need to see themselves represented And so I included some pictures of some women who I really admire, who are out here doing some really amazing work. We need opportunities at every level. It's not enough to be like, oh yeah, we have a couple of Black people here, and this is they're in entry level positions, and that's all they'll ever be, entry level. Like, we need Black women to be the heads of organizations in leadership positions and roles that are decision making. And then we also need to have opportunities for Black girls that are like environmental learning or outdoor experiences. And so that's what leads me into my third chapter, Black Girls Outside Leadership Development Program, BOLD, where I worked with the AAAS IFTIN ambassador, so I got a grant from them, and I worked with my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, and our Dr. Betty Shabazz Delta Academy program, because I was like, all right, so I got this award and they're giving me $10,000. I'm going to spend their money, but I need a way to do that, which also aids in my dissertation because I don't have the time to do it otherwise. And so for me, I'm definitely one of those people where I'm just kind of like, I need for this to be hitting multiple goals at once. Like, I'm never doing anything that is only hitting one goal because I don't have the time for that. Like, it needs to be double dipping to the maximum. And so the main goals of this program were to increase participant entrance and knowledge of natural resources careers, introduce students to pathways that they can follow to pursue a career in natural resources, and increase self-efficacy regarding ability to be successful in a natural resources career. And so at the time, I was at the University of Arizona, so we were serving girls in Tucson and Sierra Vista. We met every other week for 5 months. I had 9 speakers. They did independent activities. And so like part of that was like doing fake Instagram posts because I wanted them to like own the knowledge, and I wanted them to be able to like share that with other people. And then they also got nature packs, which included camelback backpacks with water bladders, Vortex binoculars, because I wanted them to have brand name stuff, because I wanted them to know that, you are valuable and you deserve to have nice things. They got a compass, a headlamp, a book on natural history, and then also at the end of the program, I ended up having some money left over. And so they each got an America the Beautiful pass to all the national parks. And so for this particular series, I invited a bunch of women of color who are in natural resources, but I didn't keep it to, like you're just traditional ologies. I want to specifically point out Atia Wells. She is out in Baltimore, and she is fantastic. And currently she's actually fundraising for the project that she's working on, Bliss Meadows. So Atia is trained as a nurse, but she realized that she wanted to create outdoor spaces for herself, her family, and her community. So she ended up buying up this whole like piece of land in Baltimore, and they're currently like rehabbing the house to make it like a nature center. And then they're gonna like create like an orchard and like a petting zoo type thing, and like they're just doing all this really cool stuff. But the point is, I wanted to show these girls that natural resources doesn't have to look one way. Working in the environment or outside doesn't just have to look one way. There's just so many things that you can do. And I wanted them to have at least one person out of this speaker series that they could relate to. So I tried to be as broad as possible. And my preparation of the speakers changed with each iteration, because with every session, like I got different feedback from the girls, and I wanted to know what they were getting out of it, so that way I can prep the speaker to be like, hey, next time or this time, this is what I want you to do. Essentially, like, so I told them all at the beginning, whatever you normally do, don't do that. You're talking to middle school age kids, and they don't want to hear about all that. You need to say it to them in a way that is, a little bit more inspiring or engaging, or something that like really relates to them, because like grad school and jobs, like that's abstract to them. And so we need to talk to them in a way that like makes sense at their level. So not necessarily dumbing it down, but where they're at. And so I was like, talk to them about who you are as a person, your family, like they want to know about like scholarships to go to school and things like that. They want to understand your path a little bit more. And so then I had each of the speakers also do an activity with these girls and stuff like that. And so I also have to say that this all was via Zoom because it was during the pandemic, which made it a little bit more challenging because I had only taken like one environmental learning class at this point, and I had taken like a survey research methods class. So I'm like, I'm not a social scientist. I'm just taking somebody's money and doing something with it. And hopefully it works out. And I think that it went pretty well. It's not a publishable chapter, but the girls got something out of it. So that's really what matters. I graduated. So can't really ask for more than that. And so something that I did want to keep in, because I deleted a lot, but I thought that this slide was really powerful because like I said, I had the girls make these like faux Instagram posts, and something that one of the girls put in was, what I learned is that I will face and overcome challenges in my life. And like, how powerful is that at middle school to know that like there are going to be barriers. And that was another thing I told the speakers to talk about, is like not all of like good and fun stuff, but like also like the challenges that you're gonna face, and give the girls like ways to like overcome them essentially. And like for somebody to really to take that and internalize that, like, you know, that you're empowering them to move forward despite whatever challenges that they may face. And we specifically focused on middle school age girls because, and this isn't just for Black girls, this is for girls in general. Middle school is around the time when they start to have that self-doubt, where people advertently or inadvertently are telling them, oh, you want to do science? Well, you're a girl, maybe you should, you know, pick something else. Or you want to do math? Well, girls aren't good at math and things like that. Like, that's when they start to really hear those things and internalize them. So middle school is that point where we want to be like, okay, we're giving you the resources that you need, because you probably already have some kind of interest, but you just need the resources to drown out those negative, you know, naysayers and things like that. And so what I learned in this program is that for the most part, I wasn't telling the girls anything new. Like, they understood what natural resources were. When I asked them, they were like, land, water, air, you know, all that stuff. Like, they understood it. And some of them were like, yeah, we do want to, you know, go into like these kinds of fields. And like one of them like really wanted to be a vet really badly. And so like she was super into it, while others were more into like, just like Jose was saying, like taking walks and stuff like that. They were like, I asked them what their favorite outdoor activity was. And some of them were like, going outside to walk my dog. And so like, that's still outside, that still counts. And so really the takeaways are, give these girls the opportunities and resources that they need to be successful. Just give them the opportunities. You don't have to try to convince anybody to do anything, because like them, like me, a lot of us know from that young age that this is what we want to do, and all we need are the resources in order to be successful. Like, I am a hard worker. I work very hard. However, I am lucky enough to have been in a position where, despite my parents not knowing that ecology was a job for me, they were like, well, you wanna be a scientist? Well, how about you go to this math and science high school? Or like, you know that you're gonna have to go to college. Like, they were trying to prep me as best as they could, and they gave me all the resources that they could in order for me to be successful. And that's not my hard work. It's luck of the draw to have people in your life to give you resources. And that shouldn't be luck, that should just be a given. And so another really important thing was working with my sorority. So again, like, it was on Zoom, so they helped to manage some of the girls, but also they were sitting, a lot of them who weren't even helping were sitting in on the sessions. And they were like, yeah, well, I know so-and-so, they're not in this program, but they would love something like this. So they are taking this information from the program to people outside of it. So I'm not only, like, I didn't only just work with the girls in that program, like, I got that information out to who knows how many other people and things like that. So it's very important especially for Black communities and other communities of color, that you work within the community and you see what they need. And so, you know, for my sorority, they needed a chair for Delta Academy. Sometimes you get voluntold, sometimes you volunteer. This time I volunteered, and I chaired that committee. They were like, do what you need to do. And I was like, great. They were like, oh, we don't have to factor you into the budget this year. I was like, no, I got money. And they were like, perfect. And so like, if you come into like, you know, communities, and that's not saying go into communities, because sometimes you could, wherever you are, you can work with the people that you got. But sometimes when you go into these communities, it's like, they're looking for the opportunities and they're looking for the resources, and they just might not necessarily know where to get them from. And so really, that's the overall, you know, deal, give resources and opportunities. How am I doing on time? Oh, I have more time? Listen, y'all only pay for a certain amount of time. I'm just joking. But then while I was doing all of this in grad school, I was also doing like a lot of other stuff, because I was just kind of like, you know, I'm one of those people where I'm just like, well, if I don't do it, who's gonna do it? And so I was like always out and about, like finding different opportunities and stuff like that. So as mentioned, I am a AAAS, so the American Academy for the Advancement of the Sciences, FN ambassador. So this philanthropist, billionaire oil lady decided that she doesn't want to die with her money and she wants to give it all away. And one of her nieces was just like, yo, I don't see any lady scientists. So she picked 125 of us to be ambassadors. And that was an opportunity that I actually found on Twitter, and I just applied. And I know I stressed out my graduate advisor because I stayed applying to stuff. I was like, oh, look at that. That looks interesting. Like I just, for me, like I'm motivated by, you know, success. Like as soon as I start doing well, I'm like, okay, because I was not the best student in high school or college. And then, you know, at some point I started to do better and I was like, oh, I like this. And then I also did another AAAS program, a mass media fellowship, where I worked at the Las Vegas Review Journal. And so I knew I didn't want to go into science journalism, but I knew that AAAS was just going to be like a really great network. So I went and I did that, and it was a lot of fun. And then something else that I do, so with the FN ambassadorship, one of my fellow ambassadors, she's a real nerd. Like I like nerds. I like Marvel, I like anime, I like, you know, all that stuff, but she's a nerd. And she was like, we should go to Comic-Con. And so we did, and that was a lot of fun. And we worked with this organization called Cosplay for Science. And so now at the zoo, I'm trying to bring that in because like Jose said in his presentation, sometimes people like to hike and sometimes people like to walk. And so I'm just like, well, how can we engage people here at the zoo in ways that are meaningful to them, or and stuff that's gonna actually like interest them? So something that I'm hoping to push forward or our themed bio blitzes. And so Cosplay for Science, their theme for the next 2 years is Dungeons and Dragons. So we're hoping to do like a Dungeons and Dragons themed one. We want to do a Pokemon Go themed one, and then, you know, maybe some kind of like Black Panther, Marvel, or somewhere around there. Something where it's like pop culture, culturally or whatever, and like people are like interested in those things. So where the draw is things that they like, to do things that they might not actually do any other kind of way, and be like, yeah, so come help us with iNaturalist, because like one of the goals is to, you know, understand the biodiversity of LA. Okay, well, you know, come to this little cookout that we're gonna have and take some pictures of the plants and animals while you're dressed up as your favorite Marvel character. Okay, let's do that. Let's have some fun today. And so like that's kind of like the thinking behind that. So it's just like having all of these different interests and opportunities, and kind of like just bringing them together to make something new. And so yeah, that was pretty much everything that I have. Currently now at the LA Zoo as their first curator of conservation engagement. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at afro_herper. Oh, I need to change my email. So my that is actually like, that's still a good email, but if you want to do something with the zoo, my email is erin.mcgee@lacity.org. And yeah, I don't know if I have time for questions or not, but I have time for questions. Yes. The question was, did I get to bring the middle school kids out to the Chiricahuas? Unfortunately, no, because of COVID restrictions. So I wish I could have done, like, the original plan was to do field trips with them, but I couldn't because COVID. It is amazing. Yes. Woo, bear down. Mhm. So for like Doris Duke or like the middle school girls, because the middle school girls are probably only in high school now. As far as Doris Duke, I know that at least one of them is in grad school right now. Like a couple of others are doing fish and wildlife stuff. So they went the agency route. So yeah, I'm still in contact with some of them and we talk regularly. Yes. Oh, Lizzie, raise your hand. Okay.
I just wonder whether Bold has a kind of a future, or whether, or if you see that being picked up at some point, continued by other.
Yeah, so the question was about Bold and what the future of that is. So I'm really hoping that in my position at the zoo, I can create more resources like that. Currently, we are a team of 3, and we already have a teen council for conservation and a summer internship. And my boss has informed me that part of my job is building capacity and not starting new programs. And so hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll have more team members. And so we'll be able to do more in that way.
I'm just curious, do you always love reptiles, or that's something that you fell into the grad school as a fellow reptile lover?
So no, I did not always love reptiles, and that doesn't mean I didn't like them. I just, I thought that I was gonna do like elephants or wolves or something like that. But when I got to college, my undergrad advisor, he was doing lizards, and so then I was like, oh, I don't have to get up super early, but I don't have to stay out super late if I don't want to. But the permitting is easy, say less. So like it just ended up working for me, and they're really cool. Like you just like learn so much cool stuff. Like I didn't know like some lizards give live birth. Like what? I didn't find that out until I got to like college, and I was like, that's really cool. So I just like started to learn more about them, and like I just fell in love. So yeah. Yes. Hi. Thank you.
Important to like teach, there's like people who can create content, but there are still a lot of science people who want to have a big impact on their field. So if you're the type of person who doesn't want to find that big like social media, what would you say to someone who is in the science field still wants to create
find whatever is existing and go give your time and money. You do not have to create something from scratch. You don't have to be a content creator. There's lots of people already doing the work, and just go out and support them. And eventually the more that you're there, the more that you collaborate. If you want to create something of your own, you'll have the skills and resources to do so.